If you're in business, you probably have a website, but can your site handle your growth? How many visitors before your site slows down or crashes? What about storage and data security? From web hosting to virtual servers, Pair Networks provides the online infrastructure you need to start, grow, and flourish. When it comes to security and updates, don't worry, we've got you covered. Our 24/7 US-based customer support is the best in the industry. No frustrating chatbots or sitting on hold for hours. Check out Pair.com today to learn more. That's PAIR.com.
Cartoons from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where we teach you about 1,000 subtle shades of pain. I'm your host, Choking Hazard Bob Mackey. This is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Henry Gilbert, though in my youth, I was a Mighty Max.
It's very true. And who else do we have? Special guest.
Cat Bearer, Cat Bailey.
And today's episode is the Mighty Max episode, the Maxnificent 7.
Muchachi.
You said it, Norman. So we are
Stormin' Norman.
dipping back in. That's right. Norman Schwarzkopf himself voiced that character. We're storming back into the Bobot Entertainment Network. Of course, we all know Jessica Bobot, the famous games journalist. I probably did that joke last time, so screw it. But yes, we're dipping back into this weird syndicated package that a few good things came out of. One of them was Captain Simian and the Space Monkeys. That was a previous episode. And the other thing was Mighty Max, an inexplicably good thing based on selling toys.
Mm-hmm. I came across a lot of Mighty Max stuff. I think it is, in my Simian research, I think it is definitely the most remembered thing from the Bobot Kids Network among people.
Yes.
And
there's actually like a molecule of a web presence compared to Captain Simian.
and this was a pick of our good friend,
yes,
Cat Bailey.
Cat of US Gamer fame. She's the EIC, of course. And she came to us with this request. Cat, what is the deal with Mighty Max?
Well, back in the mid to early 90s, there was a micro toy craze. There was Polly Pocket, which was started by a toy company from the UK. Basically, Polly Pocket, maybe we'll get into this a little later.
Oh, we will, yeah.
Yeah, so there was Polly Pocket and Mighty Max, and you could not turn on your TV without seeing commercials for this thing all the time. I mean, you saw tons of commercials for Mighty Max, right?
So many, yeah. All the
Mighty Max, Mighty Max.
As a kid pushes his finger on a dial to make the Mighty Max figure swing over and knock, like, take that, Skullmaster.
Yeah, no, exactly. But there was also this TV show, and I have no idea how I came upon it. I mean, I was watching a lot of cartoons in the morning before going to school, and Mighty Max was on there, and it caught my attention. And as I discovered much later, it was actually really preparing me to be an anime fan because
oh yeah,
they stumbled totally into making an American anime before American anime was really a thing.
Yeah, Kat, you're totally right. Like this prepared me for anime, and we'll talk about why in a second. But Kat, you were a viewer of this program. Did you watch it all the way through when it was airing?
I sure did.
Okay.
I would watch it pretty much whenever it was on, and I had fond memories of it. I was always like, wow, I can't believe the way that it ended the way it did. It was shockingly dark for a kid's show. And then when I went back and rewatched it for today's episode, I was like, wow, how did they even get away with this? It was amazing.
Yeah, I started watching this when it was a daily show, when it was syndicated in my area, and I think we have to explain syndication every time we talk about a syndicated show. And it's okay if you don't know what it is, because it's an American thing that, let's say I'm a TV station, and I've decided I'm going to be an ABC affiliate. Well, I have all this ABC programming I can run, but there are times in my schedule where there's no programming. I have to buy TV shows to put on my network. And this was one of them. I think I watched on Channel 43, WUAB, the Cleveland station. So this was on every Saturday morning before school, and I watched it all the way through. I think I watched like 3 loops of it because there's only 40 episodes.
Yeah.
You know, I watched an odd episode here and there, but I guess in my network where it aired, there must have been something at a competing time I preferred to watch instead.
Let's see, Beast Wars? No, wait, Stunt Dogs. I don't know.
It might have been Beast Wars, might have been Gargoyles. You know, this is why you didn't watch Gargoyles. I didn't watch.
Gargoyles was in the afternoon for me.
This predates Gargoyles too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Gargoyles was, well, whatever it was, I only remember watching a couple episodes and thinking, oh, this does seem cool. But it also, a little bit, the lore of it did push me away of like, oh, I didn't watch these episodes.
So you're a
I don't
comic
know.
fan, though.
I know. Well,
It's
also,
just this comic book is hell.
another reason I'm surprised I didn't watch it is because the main character's name was my name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is not Fantastic Max. That cartoon sucks.
Yes,
We will not
yeah.
be doing an episode about Fantastic Max. No diaper babies allowed except for
Oh my
Rugrats.
God.
Hey, look, someday we may do it. Who knows? But,
Henry's putting it back on the table.
well, but yes, my name as a kid was Max. The short version is that I took my dad's family name. Well, I mean, I was given my dad's name. I am the third Henry Gilbert, but my parents didn't want me to go by that. It was just my name on paper. So,
It's like a cruel trick.
so from birth, I was called Max by my family, which is like the name I would have been given if I hadn't been apparently officially told I have to be my father's name, the third, and carry on the name. But anyway, so I was called Max up until I really started in the games press when I just didn't want to go through all the trouble of like, well, it says my name's Henry on all the stuff I applied to you with, but everybody calls me Max. It's like I just didn't want to have that conversation. It also felt like casting off my childhood. But that's why things with Max in the title and lead character's name Max still really touch me. And so yeah, I didn't watch this though because it was just not easy to see in my area. It's for some reason or other. But I did own several of the toys. I did buy the toys because I loved the concept of it and that I was drawn to it by it having my name for sure. And I mean too, but with toys being so gendered, I wasn't particularly interested in Polly Pocket anyway, but the dynamics of it were so cool that I was so glad that a boy toy came with those same kind of style of play sets.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, they effectively pulled a G.I. Joe with this, right? Or He-Man, sorry, where they were taking the Barbie dolls and repurposing them because they were like, well, we got to sell dolls for boys.
Yeah.
Why don't we create something called He-Man? There we go. That's sufficiently masculine.
It sort of was. So I'll get to the history. So as we've established so far, Mighty Max is based on a toy line that ran from 1992, I believe, to 1995. Not very long, but so what happened was, and I'm getting a lot of this, so there's very, very little about Mighty Max on the internet. This might be a very short history segment because there's like 2 videos on YouTube and like 1 interview that we could both find together. And so I would check out this video by Toy Galaxy, which we've used in our research before. It's called The Backward History of Mighty Max, and they give a very short history. Even they are like, where's the fan base for this show? It seems like it was pretty good. But so in 1987, Micro Machines launches, Galoob's Micro Machines. That started the tiny toy craze before there were choking hazards on toy packages. Before they were strictly enforced, at least.
I had so many Micro Machines. I had a number of them, just the regular ones at first because I like the tininess over cars. I don't particularly care much for cars. But then when they did the Star Wars Micro Machines and the Star Trek ones, I
forgot
had
about
all
those.
man.
Did I have an X-Wing? Yes. Yes, I did.
And for some reason, a man who talked fast was associated with small things. Sure.
Yeah.
That guy made his money out of that. He made like one Saved by the Bell appearance.
He was in multiple Transformers episodes.
That's right. As like Motor Mouth or whatever.
Yeah, they made up a fast Transformer just for him too.
So yes, that's when the fad of tiny toys took off. So in 1989, Bluebird Toys of the UK, they launched Polly Pocket, which we talked about, which are basically little miniature dollhouse style play sets that fold up into compacts because we're teaching little girls how to be women. It's like you put makeup on and your dreams are limited to the house.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it got started apparently where the creator of the toy repurposed a compact and turned it into a little dollhouse. And
that's
they
cool.
realized, oh, this is actually kind of cool, and started selling the idea, and that's when it began.
You know, now that I know it's a British creation, her name being Polly makes more sense. It feels like you'd never make up an American girl, aspirational girl toy called Polly these days, or even in the 90s.
And because this was wildly successful in the UK, Mattel distributed Polly Pocket in the USA for Bluebird. And in 1992, they collaborated on a Polly Pocket style playset for boys, which were very fun and imaginative with a focus on creepy and spooky and adventure-y stuff. Like all of the playsets of Mighty Max were basically monster heads that unfolded into really cool multi-tiered playsets. I mean, I feel bad for the little girls at this time. The Mighty Mighty Max things were way cooler than Polly Pocket. Like Polly Pocket, you got like a house or a store or like a gazebo. In Mighty Max, you got like a cool spooky cave or like
Frankenstein.
They're just full of skeletons everywhere.
Well, the idea was that they were supposed to be adventures, right? Where individual adventures, they had a name like Mighty Max takes on Skull Mountain or something like that.
Yeah, even like the commercials were serialized. Like, what will happen to Mighty Max next? And then there'd be like a new commercial with a new playset that would continue his adventure. So they're kind of baking in the idea of like you seeing an animated Mighty Max adventure on TV.
So this was Mattel. Like Mattel was very much into telling stories with like He-Man. This was a big part of that Console Wars book because the Mattel He-Man guy went from He-Man to Genesis, and he's all about like, what's the story? He was very much about building up a story Bible for He-Man, and so this feels like a similar lesson taken on of like, these aren't just toys, they're adventures for children to get invested in. It almost feels like they learned that continuity nerd children were out there, and they care more than just seeing like, well, what is this toy? Well, he's a cowboy, he shoots people.
There's a lot of money in appealing to pedants. That's why we have our own podcast network, Repentance, as well. So yeah, these playsets were produced from 1992 to 95, and then when the cartoon started, which we'll talk about very soon, the old ones were rebranded with the updated art and the updated origin story to reflect more of the cartoon story Bible.
This British component of it makes sense that why when I wanted to look up a walkthrough through one of the toy sets, it was a British guy talking about it. I was like, what's this British guy give a shit about Mighty Max?
Are they allowed to have toys in Britain? Oh yeah, and by the way, because there's like no resources for this online, and like we'll talk about it, it's not available anywhere. You have to go on YouTube to watch it. For this episode, I'm going to be putting in the Mighty Max video game music, and I'm sorry in advance. Because I feel like I have to put in something related, and it's all bad.
Well, that
all
whole
the music
game
is bad.
was horrible.
Oh yeah, it's an ugly game.
I was watching a YouTube Let's Play of it, and my mind was just melting at how awful it looked.
It is just like your run-of-the-mill, just paint-by-numbers licensed game of 1994.
These gendered things too remind me, and making it a gross thing. It reminds me too of creepy crawlers, the easy bake oven for boys. My brother had creepy crawlers, and they were gross. I was like, don't throw these things. It just turned into like throwing colored goo at your brother.
But you couldn't eat them.
Yeah, I know.
The thing that frustrated me was I did not care for Polly Pocket at all. I did not care for those kinds of toys. I was a little bit of a non-traditional girl, you might have. But I didn't like Mighty Max either because I thought the toys themselves really cranked the kind of the grossness or the creepiness a little too high for me. So whenever the commercials would come on, I would be kind of turned off, which makes it all the more remarkable that I somehow fell into the show.
Yeah, it actually feels like those commercials would have turned you off to it.
But the thing was is that you didn't seek things out back then. It wasn't like Netflix where you read about it and you're like, oh, now I will watch this show all the way through. I'm sure I was just flipping channels and I went, oh, this show looks interesting. And then I just kept watching because it was very entertaining.
Yeah, because somebody in Cleveland decided to buy this show for their network, I was able to watch it. It was not like our modern streaming era.
Those genre of commercials always had a scene in them where it's like, scare your sister. And then your sister's like, ah.
Or your 1950s style aunt with like a beehive hairdo and a giant mole.
Yeah. Record your dad in the shower singing with Talk Boy.
Okay, God. Kevin.
Let's talk about the show. Number one, not available anywhere. Never on DVD, never streaming, never available on Amazon or iTunes.
Except as bootlegs.
There are bootlegs, and it's all on YouTube in kind of bad quality. Again, I have to apologize. The clips are from the YouTube rips of old VHS tapes, and that's the best available version of this, and that's a real shame.
Yeah, it's not anywhere. This will cut to the end of the story, I think. After doing that Megas XLR episode where we found out that the reason it's very unavailable is because of a tax write-off situation, it could just be that this show, Captain Simeon, and all the other Bobot shows were written off as a tax loss, so that means they can never re-release them because if they make money off them, then they have to pay back taxes.
Well, with Captain Simeon, wasn't there a bunch of different rights holders involved, and that's why?
It's also a lot of rights holders, too, which I guess in this case, too, it's like
Mattel and Bluebird and Bobot and Film Roman and like a bunch of different people involved.
Yeah.
I have a couple theories. First of all, the micro toy craze died pretty suddenly in like 1998, and I think there was a reason for that because that was the year Pokemon came out.
Yeah. That is true.
Right around the time that Mattel acquired Bluebird, I might add. So good timing there by Mattel.
But let's talk about the show, just a general overview of the show. So 40 episodes total, which ran in 2 seasons between September 1st, 1993 to December 2nd, 1994. The first season ran weekly for 13 episodes as part of the Bobot Entertainment Network's Amazing Adventure syndicated block. And see our Captain Simeon episode for more on that. But in 94, it got like 27 new episodes to create a daily syndicated package, which ran from Monday to Friday for about 3 months. And that's where I saw it when it was syndicated daily.
Yeah, weekday mornings.
Yeah, I think the only times I caught them were on weekday mornings. Production-wise, I'm shocked that they were able to ramp it up to like a whole second to double-length season for the show.
They must have realized like, oh, the real money's in daily syndication. Let's do a lot more of these, or at least hit like 40 at minimum in order to do that. But
and then it can run forever.
Yes, and boy, it sure didn't. But the premise of the series is very simple. I think we didn't even talk about that. It's about a kid named Max. He receives a hat through this mystic statue that arrives from his father. It is it?
It arrives in a mysterious package.
I thought it was from his father, but he becomes the cap bearer.
So the reason it's from his father, that was the original premise in the toy.
Oh, that's why I'm getting confused. Yeah.
I think it was his mom or a thing sent to his mom.
Yes, it was a package sent to his mom. So he receives this statue in the mail. He breaks it. There's a cap inside. He puts it on, and then he meets his 2 friends, Virgil, who is this bird-like man from an ancient race, and Norman, who is this sort of golden-hearted warrior man. And together, they have adventures, and the main villain is Skullmaster, who has a bunch of souls in this jewel they have to shatter. And it's really just an excuse to do anything, anywhere, in any time period. Just like you can basically go to any setting and have an adventure.
His magic cap can send him to wherever a plot needs to be. And I skipped around and watched some of the other episodes, not fully, but like it's not all Skullmaster. He faces other guys all around the world. Like there was one that was just all in Antarctica, the episode right before this one.
Basically the thing. They riff heavily
on
They riff heavily on classic horror tropes. There's the ancient Egypt episode, and there's the one where there are werewolves, and pretty much every horror thing that you can possibly think of, they probably did it in Mighty Max.
Yeah, any kind of horror thing. They also dip into like mythology. There's a lot of fun.
Mythology is a big one.
Oh yeah, like world religions and things like that, and also just hopping all around the world to go to interesting places. So this basic setting for this toy line gave them a lot of like material to chew on in terms of making adventure stories, for sure. So how this came to be is very boring executive crap, but so Mattel got in touch with Film Roman, who of course we know as from season 4 onward were the people who made The Simpsons until what is now Fox Animation.
Yeah,
that
it's
does
just
it?
Fox Animation, yeah.
And they did things like King of the Hill and Family Guy and Garfield and Friends. Yeah, like so many things. They're a quality animation studio, and this is a good-looking show for what it is. I think it's a good-looking adventure show from 1993.
Yeah, I was bracing myself for really bad animation, and I came out going, oh, it's okay. It didn't have the kind of wiggly, noodly look that a lot of 90s cartoons have.
It has like a solid, in like an F to A scale, it's solid B, like B grade animation.
Sure. Yeah.
But it has little flourishes as well, especially at the end of the episode, as we'll discuss.
So Mattel got in touch with Film Roman to produce an animated series based on their toy line, and Phil Roman of Film Roman tapped animation writer and showrunner Mark Zaslav to create and run the series. And the directive that he was given was to make a series that was separate from the toys, but could cross-pollinate with the toys if necessary. So they just said, make a thing based on this. It wasn't like G.I. Joe or He-Man or whatever. It was like, make sure these new characters are featured. Make sure these playsets are featured. Just like make your own thing separate from the toys that we can base toys off of if we want to.
I feel like that extra layer of distance is like a law. Like there was some law that's told them they couldn't be that closely a commercial like the 80s cartoons.
Well, by the early 90s, they were really cracking down on that kind of thing, which is another reason why they have the educational tidbit at the end.
Oh, yeah, it's like, today we went to Egypt. Here's what's in Egypt.
But I like it a lot better than the PSAs, like, don't ride with strangers. Like, I like that they're actually teaching you about geography in the world.
I prefer that to the Wheel of Morality. Yes, yeah, that's true.
So Mark Zaslav and Rob Hudnut, check out our Space Monkeys episode for more on him. They're the credited creators, but let's talk about Mark Zaslav, who might have come up on a previous episode because he worked for Disney Television Animation in the 80s and early 90s, where he developed and wrote for shows like The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh and DuckTales, and he is the co-creator of
Both great
Tailspin.
shows.
So, yeah.
Co-creator of Tailspin. Wow.
Yep, so he has a lot of
Best Disney
cred.
afternoon show, by the
Yeah.
way.
Ooh.
The what?
Ooh,
No.
those are big words.
Wrong.
Yeah, I'm just like dropping my mic right here.
I think it's an underrated show, Kat. I think it's a very underrated show.
Tailspin's my favorite one. I'll
Wow.
say that much.
But Zaslav is, it sounds like he comes from this whole, by the mid 90s, all these guys we talked about before, like Doug Landale as well.
Yeah.
And the Simian co-creator, his name escapes me right now. Like, they were all guys
Gordon
who,
Bresic.
Yeah, Bresic. They all came up through the Disney machine and in some cases moved over to Warner. And then by like in the middle of the 90s, those folks were had graduated from Disney Animation and were ready to sell their own shows. Like, it just shows the influence of Disney Afternoon on all animation for like more than a decade, from the mid 80s to the mid 90s.
Yeah, so I mean, he left Disney in 1993 to form his own company, exactly like you said, Palisades Films, and his first thing he developed was the ABC Saturday morning series Crow, before working on Mighty Max. Does anyone know what Crow is?
With The Crow.
Not the Crow, but it's just CRO, as in Cro-Magnon.
I remember watching a couple episodes, but ABC wasn't my bag, baby. I was always watching Fox, but
it was a children's television workshop series about teaching you physics via a caveman.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I think that turned me off too. Like, I think
Education. What the hell?
learning religion. Let's get out of here.
I mean, just the premise is making me fall asleep even as we speak.
Yeah.
As I recall, it had okay action, and also the art style was a little reminiscent of Mighty Max too, like the dark shadows and stuff on the characters. I think maybe after Crow, he learned that taught him the lesson for Mighty Max of like, let's bury the education just a little bit more. Let's
shove it all the way to the end.
Yeah, the back burner is not far enough back on this.
So he worked on a lot of stuff. I just looked at his IMDb. He still works today, but he worked on things like Tasmania. He wrote a bunch of those, and also his next project after this was not great, but watching Mighty Max, I'm thinking this has to be good. It's Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, the one of the many Power Rangers ripoffs.
Oh, okay.
Man, that sounds like parody.
Yeah,
I remember-
it's like immature radioactive samurai slugs.
Like our mice from Mars.
Yeah,
I don't think I watched that one. I watched VR Troopers. I watched
Big Bad Beetleborgs.
Big Bad Beetleborgs, a little of that. That was the one with the haunted house, right?
Yeah, and like Blue Jay Leno genie
Yes,
ghost.
yeah. But I don't think I watched Supers. Yeah, that was like on another channel. Their angle was that they amped up the Saved by the Bellness even more of the human segments of Power Rangers.
Those Power Ranger segments are expensive. So I want to give a quote from this interview that Henry found. Thank you, Henry. It's like the one interview with him, the one mention of Mighty Max online, basically, outside of a wiki.
I'm amazed you found anything.
I'm very happy this webazine still was online when I clicked on it.
A web scene. So here's basically the meat of the interview about Mighty Max. So Mark Zaslav says, Mighty Max was my Johnny Quest, but updated. I wanted a fearless kid who didn't have superpowers and wasn't afraid of being smart when necessary, which meant when confronted with superior force, he'd run away. I also, after seeing some of the toys, wanted to do a retelling of basic mythologies, a new way to do werewolves, cyclops, etc. I tried to do a rethink at the core of the idea and reinvent the concept of what these creatures, etc. were. This held to all the characters as well. The wise mentor was a talky chicken. The brute was actually a sensitive guy who'd never show it, and all led by Max, who had been enabled with the power to transport around with all the ramifications that entailed. And his growing awareness of how serious his destiny might be, people would die for him. And we see that happen in this episode.
Yeah, it's extreme, man.
I can't believe they got away with that. I seriously can't. I mean, it's such an outlier in terms of violence. Somebody's dying practically every episode. And my understanding was that the creators clashed with the networks a lot. And that brings me to my second theory, which is it's so violent that I think that a lot of people who might otherwise have purchased a syndication package are like, no, I don't think so.
I would say it's violent. It's pretty classy violence in that most of it happens off screen, and it is like I think it's appropriate for
but
the
it's
age
for
range.
kids at the same time.
I was a kid and I loved it.
Yeah,
kids
no.
love violence.
But I could see USA saying this is too intense for Cartoon Express. Yeah, or the like. But that's how I figure they even got away with all the death in this, and like
Yeah.
literally saying out loud all
I'll
the time,
kill you.
"I will kill you.
Yeah.
You will die."
I mean, one of the
yeah.
characters gets eaten by a giant spider.
Yeah, yeah. I guess we could talk about a few. So, like in this series, we can talk about the voice cast later. The show ruled because there was some light continuity. And also, there was death. The fear of death was everywhere for Max. Max thinks, I'm going to die. He's going to kill me. Characters are saying, I'll kill you. I guess we can spoil this. Max's companions die in this series in the last 2 episodes. Like the big brute guy, Norman, at some point in that final 2-parter, they're like, oh, we find out that these 2 characters die. It's prophecy. So Max gets the cap. That's prophecy. But his companions have to die. And his companions are like, we are okay with death. You need to be okay with us dying. And they are okay. And you see them die on screen. It's really intense.
Yeah.
Like when Norman crawls in that spider's mouth as a kid, I'm like, they're not going to fucking do this, are they? And they did. And I think I was thinking the F word because it was intense.
Yeah, Virgil explodes, or he's like lasered out of
Yeah.
existence,
Vaporized,
Yeah,
like a phaser. Yeah, I think the secret is that Skullmaster is a hyper competent villain, which is not something that you necessarily saw a lot in these kind of cartoon shows. I mean, I was used to watching cartoon shows like with Dr. Claw, where the villain would be foiled every episode, and they'd be like, "I'll get you next time."
Yeah, he's not an oaf. He's not a buffoon. He's like, he knows what he wants, and he wants to hurt and kill Max
Well, he wants
as
to take
violently
over.
as possible.
He doesn't just want to take over. He wants time compression. Yeah, he's very much like an Ultimecia type character. He wants to rule the universe and the past, the present, and the future. And the way he can do that is getting hold of the hat. So, various episodes, he's trying to enact this plan. And he has his own objectives. And often when they face him, they only come away with kind of a Pyrrhic victory.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, he's very dangerous in this show.
Yeah, you're right. He's super competent. I think that's why it was a compelling show, because it was not like I'm going to laugh at him like Skeletor or something. He's like, he is like, when he's on the screen, you're like, oh shit, he's going to kill people.
If it was a Skullmaster episode, it mattered more than the regular villain of the week or whatever. I think too the show wanted to train you for loss, because you will lose all of the toys in your toy set for Mighty Max because they're
Yeah.
tiny and will fall out.
They'll go down your little brother's throat. So there was some light continuity in this series. At the end of this episode, Skullmaster is defeated. Then the second season begins. It's like, well, he's got a new boss now, and now he's the problem with Skullmaster. So they go off the first season. So there's some expected continuity. Like if you watch this episode without watching like the series premiere or like the series in general, you might not know what's going on or why any of this is important.
Actually, this episode is basically a 2-parter, because there was an episode before this called, I'm not kidding, Bring Me the Head of Mighty Max.
Yeah, a lot of these have great names.
Yeah. Which,
what was it? The Brain Suckers?
Yeah.
No, I was glad I watched the first episode, because this episode calls back to the first episode multiple times too. Yeah.
well, the previous episode, or the previous continuity episode, because it goes continuity episode, then there are like 3 Monster of the Week type episodes, and then the season finale. And in the previous episode, basically Skullmaster raises a horde of zombies that are chasing after Max the entire freaking episode.
Yeah, and he wakes up having that nightmare in this one. You're right, yeah. Yeah, there was continuity, which was unheard of for any kid's cartoon,
And
regardless
that really
of
drew
syndication.
me in, because I wasn't used to the idea of continuity on TV. I did not read comics, unlike you, Henry. And I watched a lot of Star Trek, and I was frustrated by the fact that they hit the reset button pretty much every week, with a few exceptions in TNG. And so to have a show where everybody was kind of remembering things, and there was an actual arc, and I got to the end of the show, and there was an actual conclusion, because it always frustrated me in so many of these cartoons. They never beat Dr. Claw.
Yeah.
The adventures were inconclusive. I wanted to have a final showdown, and the show gave it to me. And that's why it always kind of stuck in my mind, because I couldn't believe how, I don't want to necessarily use the word mature, but it was a fairly smart show.
It's I would say it's like sophisticated,
Well
for,
constructed.
Yeah, for this kind of entertainment. I guess. Sorry, Henry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just that continuity. The reason it's not and stuff, and it's still like companies don't want continuity as much in a lot of their kid shows. It's all a business thing. It's like the things are less attractive as a rerun package that you sell.
It's all about not trusting your audience, because
Yeah, that too.
Well, if they don't know what the arc is, then they're going to watch it and be confused, and then they won't want to watch our show anymore.
no toys, and then they go somewhere else. Yeah.
But Mighty Max actually solved this problem in an interesting way. Apologies if this is a spoiler. At the end of the show,
Yeah, I want to talk about this.
Mighty Max is fighting Skullmaster. His friends Norman and Virgil are dead. Mighty Max is about to make the ultimate sacrifice, and he ends up in a stable time loop where he goes all the way to back to the beginning of the show, but he retains all of his memories, and you begin again.
So it's kind of a terrible fate for him because he will never resolve this because he's trapped in the syndication loop.
Well, no, I think I think the idea is that he goes back to the beginning, but this time he remembers and he's going to do it right.
But it's also the ending is written to reflect the way the show was aired, because when you reach the end of the package in syndication, you go back to episode 1. So now you're back at the beginning, presumably thinking with your knowledge of what you just saw, oh, Max now can do it again, but not really because the show's already made. But it's a cool loop that also reflects the way these shows were made and aired.
Yep.
Which is so fucking clever.
It's incredibly clever.
Yeah,
to end with a time loop.
Like, even I knew by 93, it's like, well, this is the last episode of Darkwing Duck. We're back to episode 1 next week or on Friday or whatever. But they made a way for the last episode to connect to the first episode just because by the laws of television, it had to happen.
I think it was Tiny Toons when I realized how the packaging worked, because they had joke. It's the song at the end of their High Noon parody that ends with like, "We promise to return when the shows rerun." Like, that's how I know it's the end of a package. Like, that was usually the last one in the package, and then it would start.
What
back
a great
over.
episode to go out on!
Yeah, they saved it to the end. But I think by that time I was starting to realize that these things would go in order, and that Mighty Max was so aware of it. They build into it a repetition like that makes watching it feel like a new adventure.
Yeah, because even if you have a syndicated series and for whatever reason the main villain is defeated, there's a success at the end, it is a letdown to go back to square one when the syndicated package restarts. In this one, it feels like, well, this is like New Game Plus for him, kind of.
The only other show around this time, I think it came a little after, but was Exo Squad, that had a beginning to end continuity, and then it had like it was a lot like American Gundam, really. Like, have you seen Exo Squad, Cat? As the Gundam head, I think you'd have enjoyed it then. It's a kid show.
People die in that too.
Yeah, several characters.
Come to think of it, I think that actually X-Men started before Mighty Max, and
92,
and that was a show that actually did kind of clue me into continuity, and that was a reason that I generally enjoyed it. If I recall correctly, it didn't really have a strong conclusion. It did a bunch of the comic arcs and such.
Well, the last episode was a BS one. That was after they did a season that all the animation was done in a much cheaper studio, and it kind of drove everybody off. So, yeah.
I think the upshot of all this is that an absurd amount of love and care went into a show that was really just there to advertise toys, and I kind of appreciate that.
Like, the amount of freedom he was given is crazy, and he really took advantage of that freedom by making some really cool stories. Let's talk about the voice cast really quick, because it's amazing. It's like such a good voice cast.
I can't believe how good the voice cast is in this show.
So Rob Paulsen as Mighty Max, you know him as like characters like Yakko Warner. He was one of the voice actor mafia of the 90s, and that he was in everything.
Donatello.
Yeah.
He's now Donatello.
Raphael.
He was Raphael.
I
forgot he graduated to Donatello.
He's both.
That's a downgrade in my opinion.
What? Come on.
I'm a Raph man. That's why I'm always rude.
Of course you are.
And he's still 1 million people.
Yeah, and he's got the Great Talking Tunes
He was
podcast.
the dog in Rick and Morty.
Oh, yeah. He still does a lot of work. And we also have, so Rob Paulsen, he's like a known quantity. We all know he's great. But I want to talk about Tony J as Virgil. Probably the most Tony J voice acting in any form, because he's in all 40 episodes of this. When Mark Zaslav was writing the series, when he was writing the story Bible, he worked with Rob Paulsen and Tony J at Disney on stuff like Tailspin and stuff like that. So he's like, their voices were in my head when I was writing this. So he got Tony J to play Virgil. Tony J was Shere Khan in the Tailspin series.
That's right. Yeah. Which was like, Tony J's voice is the greatest in everything. The R.I.P. Tony J. But to get him for this, like, the Bobot Kids Network would not afford Tony J and other shows. This feels like he got friend prices, or like that Tony J must have really liked this Zaslav guy. Yeah,
they got Tim Curry on this show. Skullmaster. I mean, come on.
Well, we'll get to him, but Tony J brings this air of like
screw Tim Curry, Tony
seriousness
J.
to the show. Sure, like you believe what he says. If that was anyone else doing like a British voice, it might not be as I don't know, like believable or like compelling. But man, I mean, You know him probably best as playing Judge Frollo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Disney movie. Like, I can't believe they got him to do that. He's not a Kevin Kline or a Demi Moore or a Tom Hulse or whatever. He is a voice actor.
Yeah,
and they let him have that huge role.
And that he would commit that much to like he did like one-off voices on a lot of animated series, but to be a regular every episode character who does so much talking on the show, like just in this episode, I think he might have the most lines in this one episode.
And he does a really great job as well. He really fully commits to the role. The character of Virgil, you totally believe that he's dead serious about the legends that he's conveying. He's got a little bit of pathos going on.
And I like that he, in a few other episodes I watched, he refuses to admit he's wrong about stuff.
Yeah.
Too. I like that kind of full of himselfness, and that this silly looking character, this silly looking chicken man character, as Mighty Max will call him, he has the most like dignified voice ever. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they managed to make it work just because they fully buy in. There's no self-awareness. I mean, there's a self-awareness obviously, but they're buying in totally. So like, yeah, this kid has a hat that's magic, and that sounds like a stupid concept, and yet,
yeah.
They make it work. I mean, there's a scene where you see this ancient Greek warrior named Maximus, and he's wearing the freaking ball cap, and it should look totally ridiculous, but it's an incredibly tragic moment, and you're like, oh, wow, man, I really felt that.
At face value, it's ridiculous. I mean, he finds a baseball hat inside of an Egyptian statue.
And he's hanging out with a chicken that knows everything.
This show is stupid. So Tony J, also Megabyte from Reboot. I'm sure we'll do Reboot at some point, but Megabyte's the villain, and he was Megabyte in Reboot. Also, so the most important voice actor is, of course, Bull from Night Court. Richard Mull is Norman, and he is great, too, and he was also Two-Face on Batman the Animated Series.
Oh,
that's right. I always forget he's Two-Face. He's good as Two-Face.
He's
so good as Two-Face.
Two-Face was one of the best characters in Batman the Animated Series, for sure.
I loved his episodes.
He was he wasn't as tragic as Mr. Freeze, but he was still pretty tragic.
Yeah, you felt bad for him. Yeah. And of course, we all have watched Night Court. We probably grew up watching Night Court. And Bull, that's the reason I watched Night Court. He was just a giant cartoon character. I mean, the show was a cartoon, too.
My parents watched Night Court. I actually watched a clip from it not too long ago because Brent Spiner was in it. And there's a real vaudeville energy to that show.
Well, Spiner is a recurring character of a poor immigrant who runs their newsstand.
Well, he was basically Cletus.
Yeah.
He's
you're right. I mean, the show was vaudevillian because it's like the court was just a series of sketches, like let's bring out the 5 sketches we wrote.
Yeah, here's Michael Richards to come out to say like, I'm invisible, I tell you, invisible. Yeah, then they did multiple episodes where like, we have to do 500 cases in one night. And so it was just a one-line joke like, I'm this, well, you're this, click. Mull was, I think he was my favorite character as a kid too, because the sex stuff went over my head. I didn't understand that. The Mel Torme stuff too. But Bull, like, doing superhuman physical tasks while being a super friendly, gentle giant. That was so funny as a kid. And
in the last episode, it was revealed that Bull is an alien.
That's right. He gets teleported into space. I forgot about that.
It's a weird show. All you millennials, we are millennials too. You need to go back and watch Night Court again. I mean, you've heard Baker Street, right? This has got a better sax riff than Baker Street, that Night Court theme song. But of course, we have the great Tim Curry as Skullmaster, and Tim Curry was doing a ton of voice acting in the 90s. He was doing things like Gabriel Knight, the CD-ROM adventure game. He was in Duckman. He was just doing a ton of like fun work for kids. And this is a really good role for him. A really hammy role, but he does it so well.
Yeah, I think Tim Curry ultimately, there's so many things that make this show work, but he really brings the character of Skullmaster to life and makes him a villain who seems really dangerous and really on it, as it were. He's extremely deadly serious, and he takes all of the lines that he's given, the extremely hammy lines, as it were, and just makes him really compelling. He has a theatrical presence to him that I really like.
Under a lot of people, he'd just be Skeletor, He'd just be like, like, to get such like malicious gravitas as Tim Curry, who he's, Dr. Frankenfurter. He was the Russian who's going to take war to ice
All
in Command and Conquer.
You can hear him
Alert.
chewing on the dialogue as he's saying it, where he's like, not only will I rule your present, but your past and forevermore. And stuff like that.
He was just the greatest
Yeah.
at everything. He's still with us. He
He had a stroke in 2012, but he's still he recovered. He's still voice acting.
I loved
That's
him in
great.
Muppet Treasure Island.
Oh, you're right. He
he's
was
the
in
best
that.
Yeah,
part
he was
of
Long John
that.
Silver.
Yeah.
And in Duckman, he played Duckman's nemesis, King Chicken, which was an amazing role for him because we probably talked about it on this podcast before. When he appeared as King Chicken, he first had to appear as someone King Chicken was disguised as. So he'd always had to do two voices in one episode.
And you were just waiting for, like, when is this Tim Curry voiced person going to be
King
revealed?
Chicken.
And the Batman and Beyond movie, they did a misdirect of that, of having a character voiced by Mark Hamill that you think will be revealed as the Joker, and he's not. And I always appreciate that good misdirect for people who know voice actor names.
And I think Mark Zaslav was in touch with Andrea Romano because he said, I was talking to a Warner Brothers voice cast director, and she gave me a lot of the talent for the show. She recommended a lot of talent. It had to be Andrea Romano because of all the people on the show, like Tress MacNeille, Jim Cummings, Kath Soucie, Frank Welker, Maurice LaMarche. Everybody that was on a Warner Brothers show is on this from that era.
Kay Mulgrew gets a spit.
Yeah, like a lot of Star Trek people are on this as like guest
Oh,
characters
I didn't know
too.
that.
Yeah. Oh man, David Warner's on this show for
David
one role.
Warner.
Yeah.
Oh, he's my favorite, man.
He's the greatest, yeah.
I can't believe one show has Tony J, David Warner, and Tim Curry all in major
amazing.
roles. Like, that is like the triumvirate of evil British men of my childhood.
But the show, to wrap up our history segment, it's so good. I mean, it is a show from 1993, so there's some dated stuff in there, of course. But like, I wish it was available in a better form, or at least like streaming somewhere, because I want to revisit it. But the YouTube videos are kind of hard to watch. They're like not unwatchable, but man, you know what you're missing when you look at those fuzzy captures from 20 years ago.
I think it is just Bobot, like, you know, went through it on Space Monkeys, but they've sold and they've got like bought 3 times over, and whoever owns the library, like, it just might not be legal to broadcast it in any region, which you'd hope, like, can't you just release it in like France or something and we can all just steal those DVDs? Can't you do that?
What's remarkable is that Polly Pocket totally outlasted Mighty Max. It got rebooted not too long ago.
Really?
Actually.
Man.
Yeah. As recently as 2018, I think it had a new show. I don't know if they released new toys, but when I was doing my research, I was like, oh, Polly Pocket survived, but Mighty Max has been lost to the mists of time.
Yeah.
It just makes me sad because I think there are a couple of artifacts from the 90s that I hold on tight to, and maybe Mighty Max is more fond memories than anything, but you know, Babylon 5 is another one, and it becomes a problem of distribution. At a certain point, you run into a problem of, well, it's only available on the DVDs, and unless you want to, you know, kind of rip them, or you want to go haul out the old DVD player, you're going to be kind of screwed, I guess. So.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that these shows can just get lost, and like, well, I said it many a time, but like, nothing is ever censored or lost in this new digital age now. You can never truly remove something, but it's more about quality. Like, Mighty Max will always be around, but we need better quality rips out there.
It has a wiki and like TV tropes entries, and it's on YouTube, so some people remember it.
Not enough. I feel like we'll have the highest SEO for Mighty Max after posting this episode. But yeah, if you remember the show, we hope you do if you're listening to this. But if you have fond memories, let us know in the comments, because like when I was a kid, I think by the time I was like 8 or 9, I was a precocious little jerk, and that's why I'm running a podcast network with Henry, because we're discerning children with fine taste. And when I was a kid, I very much valued shows that didn't talk down to me. Like, I knew when the show thought I was a baby or I was stupid, so I always was drawn to things like, you know, Ren and Stimpy and Tiny Toons and Animaniacs and Batman the Animated Series. And this show I definitely identified as like, oh, you don't think I'm a dumb baby? Like, people are dying, you're talking about serious subjects, there are big words being thrown around, and I valued that a lot. I felt like I was being respected as a kid. Like, oh, you value my time and my intelligence. Of course, I was still a stupid little kid, but I knew it was not a stupid show.
By the time I was 11, I was definitely into darker and edgier because I was
Yeah.
mature. I was a grown-up. I was in 6th grade.
You know, I think one thing that if I could change about the show, I love Rob Paulson, but I wish it was a real kid. Like, some of the lines he has, like, I'm just a kid. I'm like, You sound like Yakko to me.
He sounds
It's
like
just-
Chandler. His personality is Chandler. He's like a little sarcastic quip robot.
yeah. Could I be any more the cat bearer?
Yeah.
Come on.
He's a snark a minute like little kid. That's all he is. He's just there to toss off one-liners, basically.
He is like the human Raphael, I guess. So yes, that was our history segment. We'll be back after this break with the Maxnificent 7. And yes, I did say that correctly. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the break for the What a Cartoon episode of Mighty Max. I am your host, the unavailable in any format Bob Mackey, who is here with me.
Beowulf's best friend, Henry Gilbert.
Aw, very nice. And thanks for listening to this episode. And if you're listening to this episode, you're on the free version of What a Cartoon. We appreciate you listening, but if you want the superior listening experience, you must go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons and sign up today to support the show. If you sign up at the $5 level, you'll get every episode of this podcast 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, and that will also get you Talking Simpsons 1 week ahead of time and ad-free. And at the $5 level, you'll also have access to all of our paywall podcasts at that level. Everything we've done for the past 2+ years, including all of our limited mini-series. That includes Talking Critic, Talking Futurama, Talk King of the Hill, and our new mini-series coming this fall that will be voted on by patrons. We also have many other things going on at that level. Interviews, end-of-season wrap-ups, deleted scene specials, and so much more is happening there. Dozens upon dozens of podcasts that you haven't heard. And if you like our voices, I think you'll like to hear those bonus episodes. So, Henry, there's more podcasts going on at the $10 level. What is happening there? Extra long podcasts.
Oh, yes. On top of all the $5 content you'd get, if you went up to the $10 a month level, you'd get access to our monthly What a Cartoon Movie podcast. It's like the What a Cartoon podcast you must enjoy, except it's even better because it's twice as long and we talk about a feature film and go in-depth and scene by scene and super granular into the history. This month, we're doing Rocko's Modern Life Static Cling, the brand new, just premiered on Netflix, follow-up to our favorite Nicktoon Rocko, or one of our favorites. Plus, the last month, we did Beavis and Butthead's Do America, 3.5 hours of talking about our favorite stupid teenagers, and there's almost a dozen more on top of that. We're reaching close to our first full year of What a Cartoon Movie, so that includes films like Batman Mask of the Phantasm, Kiki's Delivery Service, Akira, a Goofy movie, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, 1992's Aladdin, The Secret of Nim, and Tiny Toons, How I Spent My Vacation. So much fun!
At some point, we'll have to stop listing them.
Yes, it's almost too many to list all of them, but please, I just want you to know how much awesome podcasts you're missing out on if you don't go to the $10 and up level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
And if you sign up, it's very easy to listen to all of our exclusive podcasts. You will get a nice RSS code you will always have access to that you can drop into any podcast player of your choice, or you can listen to us on the Patreon app, which is a great, very easy to use app. But either way, you can fit us into your regular free podcast listening life. But that's it for us on this break. Thanks for listening to it, by the way. We'll let you get back to the Mighty Max episode, the Maxnificent 7.
Mighty Max, Mighty Max! It's Mighty Max!
Welcome to Skull Dungeon.
Wow!
Mighty Max!
Smasher, get up! Your brain donor is here. Me want brain. No way, slime face. Whoa! Watch out for that first step. It's not over, Mighty Max.
Will Max get fried? His fate is in your hands. Mighty Max, Mighty Max! You can collect all his adventure sets, each sold separately. Mighty Max figure included from Mattel.
So we're back with the Maxnificent 7. Before we begin, Henry has a toy story of the real variety.
So I had forgotten about this. I owned a couple Mighty Maxes, but I had more of Mighty Max ripoffs that were Marvel Comics based, Spider-Man ones. So they either look like Spider-Man's head or a comic book cover, and then you'd open them up and be like, Spider-Man climbs the Daily Bugle.
Does Spider-Man scream when you open his head?
No, he wouldn't do that. But, and so I looked them up here just so I remembered them. And it wasn't that they were Mighty Max ripoffs. They were Bluebird. Bluebird licensed the Marvel stuff to make them. So yeah, look up. They were from 1996. The Bluebird Spider-Man play sets.
That's the thing, is that they were really leaning into this. There was also Star Wars ones. There was Indiana Jones ones. There were Marvel ones, as you said. And then it just, one day, just disappeared. It was a short-lived fad, I want to say.
I mean, once that happened with video games once upon a time, that toy makers think it's a fad. Fad's over. Forget it.
Moving on, Pokemon time.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the appeal for these toys was, in case I think we didn't even talk about that you could bring your toy with you. It was small enough you could bring an entire playset with you. But I think like Pokemon and Game Boy Color and stuff like that really overtook that appeal. Like, no, I can bring a fucking video game with me.
I'll just have all that. I don't need the.
I had a Game Boy by 1991. I didn't really need these things.
So this episode opens with the cool Mighty Max opening. There's no lyrics or anything, even though the commercials had lyrics. In this opening, it's just a bunch of wailing guitar, so get used to that. You're going to hear a lot of wailing guitars throughout Mighty Max. It's very popular at the time in 93,
Yeah.
94.
I liked that it was just the wailing guitar and not somebody singing while trying to explain the premise of the show.
Yeah, that's good.
The wailing guitar fits too because the art aesthetic is a lot of like Boston cover or whatever. Like it's a rock album cover aesthetic.
The premise is this guy and these two other people have adventures in different places, and they're Skullmaster. That's all you need to know, really.
I really like the title cards. You can see the ambition that they want to be Batman the Animated Series, but don't have the incredible budget of BTAS, but there's still the title cards are great. The only thing on a credits level, it's like credit the director. Director should be right up there with writer on the title card.
I don't think they were there yet. But
the animators get kind of pushed to the back on this show, it feels like, at least in credit way. And also, Zaslav seems like a nice guy, but I do think he kind of breaks the rule of like, I think on every episode I watched, he gets story by credit, which is like showrunners always have that.
Tis.
Yeah,
Showrunner.
It's more like it feels it's slightly selfish to to give just a teleplay credit to the person or being cheap, perhaps.
Two of the writers on this show are still working to this day, so it's not like they never had work again.
Oh, I know.
But no, I totally get what you're saying. You were talking about this in another episode, actually.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I learned about how like Mark Weiner on Mad Men, he was always like, I rewrite everything, but I guess I can't take the written by credit or the story credit, even though I came up with it.
And Kevin Smith as well, right?
Yeah, he never wanted to give. Yeah, that's when it came up on the Clerks one, which it's like, it's just the process. Like, you're showrunner, you're making the big bucks, you make the big decisions. Help uplift the younger, lower level writer by giving them the full written by credit, But the practice is different in animation then too.
So the writer of this episode is the writer of the teleplay
Yes,
is Ken Pontac, who is actually the co-writer of newer Sonic the Hedgehog video games, starting with Sonic Colors. Starting with Sonic Colors, Sega hired two American writers to write the stories of the games and the dialogue instead of translating, like originally written in Japan dialogue, and he is one of them.
Wow, I didn't know
So there you
that.
go. And he's written for a ton of other stuff too, so including Lazy Town and other things that are not like Lazy Town, like Happy Tree Friends.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's Ken Pontac for you. This episode opens with a nightmare, although we don't know that at first. It's a continuation, as Kat said, of the last episode, in that Max is being pursued by a bunch of zombies. He runs into Skullmaster, who has the jewel floating in front of him, full of all the souls Max needs to free. And Max wakes up as he imagines the zombies tearing flesh off of his face. So, good morning, kids.
My God.
It's time to wake up and go to school.
Watch a child scream as he's torn apart by zombies. And they don't even give a shot of him waking up. It just cuts to the next scene of I guess that was a nightmare,
Yeah.
mighty one. When I saw that sequence, I was like, this would never get on network. It feels like the kind of thing only syndication could get away with, just because like it gets produced and then sold to a network, so there aren't network notes going into it.
The zombies are quite scary.
Yeah.
They do not have the look of your typical cartoon zombie. They
Yeah,
look
like
like something
silly
on,
zombies.
They look like they're on The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
They got the deep sunken glowing eyes and the tattered clothing and all that. They are actually going to tear Max apart.
They're ripping at his clothes as they do it. Like it's rough for Max in this scene. All as Tim Curry derisively laughs at you. That's harsh.
The origin of Skullmaster's jewel is also pretty messed up because he managed to get the entirety of Atlantis to willingly give their souls to him.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
You're
It's
just
a
like,
big
whoa.
scam.
Yeah,
Damn.
that's dark because they were all going to die. And he's like, well, that's the only way you're going to survive. Give me your souls. Here you go.
Damn. I didn't know
Skullmaster's a bad customer.
that. And Norman's what, a Numerian? That's his
No,
thing,
he's
or-
like a Viking. He's like Thor.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's like, I thought he's the last of his race, or is that Virgil's the last?
That's
of his-
Virgil.
Okay,
He's
my
like the
bad.
non-Atlantis Atlantean, the other ancient
Got
race
it.
that's fake.
That's
Norman's whole deal is that he's basically Thor, and every 10,000 years he has to fight somebody to be able to continue his immortality and be able to survive. So I just want to like point out that I like that this show has rules. They don't just kind of make it up as they go along. They kind of explain the immortality of the characters. They have rules for the portals. So the portals are in specific places around the world. Virgil knows where they are, so he can direct Max to them. And it's a one-way trip. So if you go through one, you got to find the next one that will get you somewhere else.
Yeah, and the portals in this episode are actually the portals that are in the first episode, because in the first episode they do try to face Skullmaster, get it out of the way immediately.
Yes, yeah, and it doesn't work out so well for them. He encounters the jewel that, later in the episode he'll say, like, the jewel used to be here. That's where he saw the jewel in the first episode. Also, I guess I just have to trust the wiki on this, but the Trapped in Skull Mountain is the toy that is closest to this one.
Yeah, I think maybe his like layer is just based on the idea
Yeah.
of there being a Skull Mountain.
Skullmaster appeared constantly in the commercials, and I think Skull Mountain definitely got a lot of
Yeah.
nods whenever they were talking about it.
It looks like the most expensive toy. Like, it was not a compact. It was like a Castle Grayskull size
I was
thing.
going to say, it has a very real Castle Grayskull vibe.
It does. I mean, I'm not a toy boy. I never was. I was into video games. But after watching this show, I was like, I kind of want one of those just on display in my apartment. Just like a fun little opening
look
play
pretty
set.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't give me any ideas. But so after the nightmare, Max, Virgil, and Norman, they're all hanging out at night. They're being cool. Virgil's explaining to Max that like these legions of the undead will pursue you forever until you're dead or until we defeat Skullmaster. So we have to defeat Skullmaster now. We got to do it now.
I also like that it starts in St. Louis. Like, they go down the arch. Like, his teleportation powers mean the episodes could start anywhere. Like that, it's a really exciting just adventure aspect of it.
But at the same time, you know that this is a serious episode because it breaks format. Because most of the episodes start with Max having fun, doing something, and then he gets a telegram or he sees a message, like he turns around and sees a message or something, because one of the conceits is that Virgil knows everything. So he sets up everything. He set up everything hundreds of years before, knowing that Max would be in that exact position to be able to see it, whether he was looking up at a blimp or whatever. So
The scrolls tell him everything. Like,
Yeah.
Tony J knows all in the show.
well, at the end of the show, you see he reveals this entire mosaic, like wall mosaic showing every event in the entire
Yeah.
show. And he's like, that's how I know everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they break format. They just cut right directly to him talking to Norman and Virgil because they do not have any time to waste. There's a lot of ground to cover in this
Yeah,
episode.
they got to meet like 4 new characters. But here is Virgil's plan up front.
Well, there is another alternative. A sufficient gathering of heroes should supply us with the necessary qualities to tip the cosmic balance in our favor.
Excuse me, you know real heroes will help? Why didn't you say so, Virgil? I mean, I've been running around almost getting killed all this time and you're buddies with Batman?
No. Real heroes, the kind with certain attributes that make them what they are. We should look to the 4 corners of the globe for what we seek. Beowulf from the north, Yona Yayin from the west, Hanuman from the far east, and Mujaji from the south. Mujaji.
Cool. What a front line. I'll just sit back and let them save the day.
Oh, no, mighty one. We follow you.
Me? But they're the heroes. I mean, come on, they're not going to listen to some kid.
You are the cap bearer. You are the only one who can save us all from Skullmaster's dark designs.
And save myself, too. Well, all things considered, maybe I am just crazy enough to do it.
Excellent. Then off we go to Denmark.
I agree with Max. Tell him about these heroes in the first episode and get him there.
Yeah, they could have been helping us all along. But I mean, the point of the show is that Max is a very reluctant hero being a kid, but he has to do everything. Like, no one else can do the things he needs to do because of the prophecy. Like, you need to be the one to do this. These people can help you, but you need to be the one to actually defeat Skullmaster.
The terrible weight of a red baseball cap.
Yes, yes. And he is like a reluctant hero. This episode is all about that. But throughout the series, he doesn't want to be doing these adventures for a lot of them.
I mean, he's 10. He doesn't want to die. Like, he's facing these giant monster guys. He's got Norman, defending him, but still. I guess this is really about, in the end of the day, predetermination versus free will. This was always going to happen to Max because it was fated in the scrolls. He has to do it. Virgil's just following his script,
Well, there's a time loop element too, right? Because, I mean, as we know, Max goes back in time. So it seems that the Lumerians had some kind of power over time. That's why they were able to kind of discern everything that was going on. So there's a lot of interesting things baked into the show's central concept. But to get back to what you were saying earlier, was that why didn't he have the heroes from the start? Well, there's a whole kind of throughout the show, Virgil and Skullmaster are kind of going back and forth, like deploying various weapons and trying to stop one another. There's an episode in which Skullmaster basically baits them into using an ultimate spell that might have put him in danger, but he gets them to waste it so that he can be able to be like, well, thanks for wasting that. Now I can enact my plan without too much trouble, but you had to use it. Ha ha. So my point is that these four heroes were kind of like, well, this is the last gambit. We got to bring these guys out. We didn't want to waste them. Here we go. We're going after Skullmaster.
Okay.
But, so first they go to Copenhagen, and I'm sure Henry appreciated this. There's some brief wrestling action involved.
I did appreciate that, yes. Also, our friend of the show, Kate Leth, when we had her on Simpsons, she talked about seeing the Little Mermaid statue in Copenhagen when she visits. They go right by it at the start.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. Wow. The show was very accurate to the places it depicted.
Yeah.
I too have been to Copenhagen, and it is a beautiful city.
Did you see the Little Mermaid statue?
I did not actually, but I did hang out in Christiania, which you would really like that one, Bob.
What is it all about?
It's basically a commune in the middle of the city that is completely independent from Denmark and is full of people who hang out and do drugs and are independent from the world.
What are you saying about me, Kat?
It's very socialist. That's what I'm saying.
I like that part.
But yeah, I was going to critique the wrestling action just a little bit.
Oh, here we go.
Well, I mean, they don't really even show it. They show the two guys approach one another, then they cut to Max. They do this with Mujaji a little later. I think they're saving all their action for the end of the episode. So there's a few Max watches something happen kind of shots, and this is one of those.
I also feel like, are they limited as to what kinds of violence they can show? Is wrestling imitatable?
That's true.
Like maybe fighting a giant spider, you can show that, but actually two people wrestling each other is like, what if you did that to your little brother?
Well, the character interactions as well are pretty complex, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily want to have to do that.
Especially with two newly designed characters, too, like Beowulf and the guy who beats him, which...
The spiteful Stevedore.
Stevedore only beats him with a freaking hammerlock. Which is a wrist lock behind the back holding you down. Like the most simple of moves, which I'd ask for my money back if a wrestling match ended with a freaking hammerlock in 10 seconds. But I also love this scene now because in high school I read Grendel, the John Gardner book that is, a kind of postmodern view on the Beowulf myth told from Grendel's viewpoint. And so all this Beowulf stuff is like, I know this because I love Grendel. Oh, this is so cool. When he's talking about, when Max in the show is going like, the guy who tore the arm off Grendel, I was like, yeah, I know all about this.
I read Beowulf.
I was going to say, you read Beowulf, right? You're the English major.
Yeah, of course. You have to read Beowulf if you're the English major.
I read it too, but Grendel is so cool. It's read it if you got time to read books these days, guys. I'm sure there's a audiobook out there for it somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, so this goes to the same through all the people he meets. He shows up, he's like, this person, really? And then they do something impressive, or they win them over, and then they recruit the person. That happens with Beowulf.
Well, and I guess, the title's obvious, but we should say this is about the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thankfully, only 3 of them already exist at the beginning of this show.
When the episode started, I was like, he's got to find 7 guys. And when it ended with 4, I was like, oh, the other 3 already count. But yeah, the Magnificent Seven or 7 Samurai, that all follows the similar story as this of the recruiting of people for an impossible task.
And they're really hurrying through these as fast as they can. You feel like something like recruiting Beowulf could have been an episode by itself.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Where he's reluctant and they're trying to convince him, and then eventually some monster shows up and Beowulf is finally able to defeat him and regains his confidence. He's like, all right, fine, I will go with you. But instead, they're like, hi, Beowulf. You want to come along? He's like, yeah, I will.
They probably only thought they were getting 13 episodes, period. So they're like, we have a bunch of other ideas we can use. So here are 4 new characters.
Yeah, looking back on it, maybe it would have been better if 4 episodes before this were meeting these 4 characters, and then they are brought back for this episode.
Yeah, the weakness of the format a little bit is that the last canon episode was like 3 episodes before this, and then there were 2 filler episodes, right? Which is fine, but it just makes everything, the conclusion to this season, feel a little bit rushed.
That there was any continuity, though, as we said before, was kind of a miracle. Like, it shouldn't have been.
And the end of the show manages to link the continuity a lot better in season 2.
And this, and Beowulf's played by Jim Cummings, I'm assuming.
Yeah, playing a dumb Swede.
Big dumb Swede is the classic stereotype.
Playing a dumb Swede in Denmark.
Oh, yeah, dear.
So Beowulf's manager fires him, and Max has a plan to recruit Beowulf.
Maybe we could drop the slob on Skullmaster or something, huh?
He was a great warrior. Once.
But that's just it, Norm. I can't believe that this is the same guy who tore off Grendel's arm in Hrothgar's hall. The guy I read about and wanted to be like.
You wanted to be like me? Oh, you shame me, mighty one.
That's the idea. Just another golden idol from my childhood. Tarnished beyond hope of repair.
Enough! I can still muster the old spirit and join you on this last quest, Cupbearer. I am Beowulf!
The CGI Beowulf movie also had that line of saying, I am Beowulf.
I forgot about that movie.
I mean, if you want to see a CGI Angelina Jolie nude.
Not completely nude.
Okay, sure, yes. Sounds like somebody Googled this.
No, I listened to Matthew J's podcast about it.
Yes, yeah.
So I like the nice little quip from Virgil about how he's like applauding Max on his knowledge of Beowulf. He's like, your school system isn't as bad as it seems.
That was great.
I mean, he is like 10. I didn't know who the heck Beowulf was when I was 10 years old.
I mean, I learned by watching these kind of shows.
I learned because of Tolkien and learning that he was a big Beowulf scholar.
I didn't know Beowulf until high school, junior year. I didn't
like
learn
English
about
is
him.
when English in high school is when I learned about Beowulf.
Yeah, and Beowulf didn't have a character in Marvel Comics, so I didn't know him like I knew Norse mythology through Thor and whatnot. Same with like all the, maybe there was a Beowulf episode of Gargoyles, but I don't recall it. So it didn't really stick with me. But if Loki or Puck showed up, I'm like, I know who those guys are.
Well, I already mentioned it, but I do really like the international flavor of this show, and I do really like that they bring in these kind of historic figures or these legends and are relatively kind of true to their depiction, I suppose.
And respectful, yeah.
And then, so it makes kids kind of, maybe at that time go, who the heck is Beowulf? I'm going to go check him out in the encyclopedia.
I believe it's all occultism. My child will not be watching Mighty Max. Although he does give them a Christian funeral at the end of this episode.
That's true.
Spoilers. So up next, we go to, is it Yona Yain?
Yona Yain.
Yona
I was looking
Yain.
this character up, and I couldn't really find any parallels to real life legends, unless I'm completely wrong.
I looked it up a bit, and it's not as popular as Beowulf, but there are Native American legends about this figure. But nothing like super popular as you would hear about other spirits and other figures, mythological figures.
It's impressively respectful for an indigenous character in a kid's cartoon.
Yeah.
In the 90s.
Well, he's still like very much in the whole spiritual thing.
Yeah. I mean, he's like, it's the Dances with Wolves style of respectability that turns into tokenism.
Could be a heck of a lot worse.
Max doesn't say anything racist. But yeah, I think this figure in the myths, like he killed this giant elk and used used its horn or antler to kill a giant bird.
Oh.
And that's basically the story. It's like a hunting kind of figure.
Interesting. I mean, that fits with his. And another of the most shocking things in this episode, like, he just kills a snake right on screen. Like, he just friggin' hits it with an arrow and it's dead. You can't kill animals on kids shows.
It like twitches and dies. So yeah, Max shows up. He starts making fun of him. Like, this guy is so old. What's he gonna do? Turn into a skeleton and dance around? That's my joke. That would be in the show, but I didn't write this. And then
using his skeleton powers.
Yes, exactly. And then the snake starts dangling behind Max, and the guy shoots it to show Max, like, I am really good at what I do. And Virgil's like, oh, that was such a good idea, Mighty One, by standing in front of that snake. He's like, yeah, I did that on purpose.
That's what makes Max a great manager. When people think he did something on purpose, he doesn't tell them otherwise. He's like, oh yeah, I'm pretty brilliant, great leader.
As a manager, take credit.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
That's really what Max's arc is in this episode, learning to be a manager who can delegate when needed.
The mightiest people are managers. We have one here on the show.
Yeah.
So up next, we're in Nepal at the zoo, and we're going to meet Hanuman, the Monkey King, a trickster with a keen wit, and Virgil compares him to other figures like Odysseus and the Coyote Legends. So he's just dropping all this knowledge on us kids.
Yeah, I expected him to bring up Anansi, the spider trickster, as well, but it's all the same. But not all the same. That sounds like I'm being very disrespectful to cultures.
So he's from the Far East, which is a little bit of an outdated term, I feel. But
he didn't say Orient.
At least
listen, Virgil's like 2,000 years old, right?
Basically a character from Journey to the West.
Oh yeah.
Monkey
King.
He's Son Goku for sure. The Hanuman is my favorite of the four because he has the most interesting arc. I mean, Beowulf was my favorite going into this because he's the one I'd heard of. Well, I'd heard the name Hanuman the monkey god before, but not really knew
Beowulf
anything
is
about
basically
him.
the Swedish chef, but this guy actually has motivations.
He does. Let's meet Hanuman.
Well, sorry to disappoint you, Mighty One. Oh, I know who you are. But I've given up the strenuous and uncertain life of a hero for the ease and luxury provided by this zoo.
Oh dear.
All the comforts of home and no running around having stupid humans trying to skewer you with a sword or a spear. But you're a hero. We need him. Okay, fine. Then we gotta bust him out of here.
Whether he wants to or not.
No, you can't do this. I do not want to be a hero again. Please. Sometimes you gotta do things, whether you want to or not.
Yes, sometimes you do.
Richard Mall's really earning a paycheck on this one pretty easy. Like for word to dollar, he's probably getting paid the most.
Yeah, there are bigger Norman episodes, of course, but I love him in this role.
In the first episode, I think he says 5 words from watching it.
He also has a really good dynamic with Virgil as a character. Like the two characters have a great dynamic, and you can tell that they've been working together for a long time. There's an episode somewhat later in which an old disagreement comes up between them, and they won't explain what exactly it was, but they argue about it for the entire frickin' episode, and it's pretty good actually.
Hanuman is so cool as the showing what Max could be if he gave up his responsibilities of
being a monkey in a zoo.
Yeah, just like, oh yeah, you can just be like basically sit around naked as a caged animal, but like, no responsibilities. Who
Life
cares?
of leisure.
3 hots and a cot for Hanuman.
Yes, yeah. His voice is interesting.
No, who is it?
His name is Clyde Kusatsu. He's a Japanese-American actor who you'd recognize him as just like he's a guy who played like Japanese Admiral in this show. And he had a lot of small parts as like he plays the coach in Batman Beyond. He has a few Batman Beyond random voices, just like he's a longtime working Asian-American actor. And so I also like that the Far East character, they hire an Asian American actor as well for that. That's good. I think Yo Yain is also voiced by a native actor, I believe. His name's Richard Horse.
Okay, cool.
He had played Tonto in a 1981 Lone Ranger.
And maybe Jim Cummings is Swedish. Who knows?
What about Mujaji?
Mujaji.
It is an African American woman.
Yeah. So Mujaji, we go to the country of Africa. I don't think they give us a title or a place where we are.
It's basically Kenya, right?
I think so.
We have some people on a safari and they're chasing after a rhinoceros.
The rock behind them looks like those mountainside.
Yeah, I mean, so Mujaji is not a deity or anything. I looked it up. It's a title of the Rain Queen of South Africa. So a woman is given that title, and she is the Rain Queen. So It's not like a mythological figure or anything like that. Although I'm sure they believe if you're crowned the Rain Queen, you are given like mythological powers or spiritual powers.
Rains for your people and drought on your enemies.
Yeah.
That's what I was able to read.
Norman has a history with her, which they don't really talk to too much, but I like that.
I like that. That's
another thing about this is, as you said, you get the feeling that these characters have a history.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I mean, for the time it would be considered edgy to have an adult relationship of this kind that's interracial, you know?
Yeah,
It's like, you don't blink twice about it now, but it's like 93, like, wow, that's pretty cool.
I mean, I was like, oh, wow, cool. Norman and Mujaji are an item, an interracial couple. Cool.
Yeah, and well, also that they create such one of their 7 heroes for the episode is a powerful black woman as well. Like, that is not what you saw in cartoons then. Now it is less rare, thankfully. And her voice actress is Olivia Virgil White, who has a bunch of like one-off appearances in shows like Jag, and the only one other cartoon appearance I could see on her IMDb, Duckman.
Duckman?
Duckman.
Who's she playing Duckman?
A couple random women.
Okay.
You know what? Oh man, they don't even credit what character she played on those shows. She's just voice credited as Olivia White.
Well, when we do Talking Duckman, and you will vote for it, we will get to the bottom of this mystery. But Kat, you had another observation?
Yes, not only did they have a strong African woman, they show her working an actual job where she, she's basically a bureaucrat.
Yeah, she now has the power of bureaucracy. She's like, you need to fill out these forms in order to hunt this kind of animal.
Yeah, she's like, this outfit costs $900, and she's basically wearing a safari type outfit, but that one that you would expect somebody to be wearing in the African outback, working in a state park or something.
Yeah, she looks like a bureaucrat, kind of.
So my point is, I'm glad that they didn't find her in some out of the way village, and they were like, oh, stereotypical African. Like, you know.
At the end of the episode, when spoilers, these characters are all dead, Max has like a little shrine to them that he makes in his backyard or whatever, and the item that represents her are her forms.
Yeah, her paperwork.
Yeah,
that's all he had left her. You would think that, I don't know, maybe Norman has like an old shirt of hers that she left over at his place.
Yes. I mean, but Norman sees her and says like, oh, civilization has quenched her fire, so rawr.
Yeah.
But now they try to win over Mujaji.
You know her, Norm?
Oh, Mujaji! Did we two vanquish the harpies with a handful of flimsy papers? And what of this garment? Where are your warrior's vestments? I hardly recognized you.
Norman! These are different times. One must change or perish. I fight my battles with red ink and correction fluid now, but the fight continues, and this suit costs $900. Thank you very much.
Change is affected by the edge of a sword.
Not anymore, it isn't, you great water buffalo.
Well, this is really great. We come all the way to Africa to find a hero, and we come up with a glorified paper pusher.
Who are you, boy, to question? Mighty One, forgive me, I did not notice. How may I help?
Forget it, Mooj. You got nothing we can use anyway. But I'll tell you what, I'll give you a call if I ever need a good lawyer.
Ooh.
Oh. He's it's a similar tact that he did with Beowulf, which is like, if he even could, man.
He's a very Bart Simpson-y character. Very snarky all the time.
He's very sarcastic.
Also, with Hanuman, they just tied him up and dragged him away. He didn't really have a trick for... I guess Hanuman is a bigger trickster than Max is, so he couldn't really trick him. But Mujaji, I also like that he calls the poachers rednecks. Like, these rednecks and clodhoppers?
They are rednecks.
Well, I mean, they're like, well, I want to catch me a rhinoceros.
How are these rednecks going on safari?
I flew all the way from Tennessee to Kenya, and I'm going to kill a rhino.
So luckily for Max, this is when the rhino breaks free of the trap. It charges at him. Mujaji shoves him out of the way, and off screen she sort of wrestles the rhino and says, like, now who's the paper pusher? And then the rhino thankfully gets up and walks away. I was like, did she kill the rhino?
It would make her not look like as much of a conservationist if she kills the rhino after that.
Yeah, so let's show our hero killing an endangered species.
Yeah, it's a white rhino too, which is much more rare. I did think it was a slight cheat budget-wise to be like, wow, look at her go, man. Yeah. Wow, look at that.
It's hard to draw someone fighting a rhino. You try it.
Yes, yeah.
So now they've got their entire crew, and they have to go fight Skullmaster. And luckily for Max, the portal to Skullmaster's mountain is in the bottom of his house. It's just right there, waiting for him.
Pretty convenient, but though, is that why his mom built the house there?
He's the chosen one.
Yeah,
He has to live there.
This was in this bit here where it's all shadowy in his basement. That's what really hit me, like how much I love the overly shadowed like character designs. Like everybody has a permanent shadow line on their outline there.
It reminds me of Mike Mignola's work, like Hellboy stuff, although he didn't touch a series, and I don't know if he was doing comics in 93 at that point.
Yeah, he's still doing Hellboy would have just been getting started.
Okay,
in
yeah.
93.
Like I was like, did he work on this? He didn't, but it looks like his style almost a little bit.
I wouldn't be surprised if he'd been doing comics all through the 80s, so his art style was known. Hellboy was like when he finally quit doing DC and Marvel stuff and went to do his own comic.
Yeah, he might have had some influence on this.
Speaking of Hellboy, Ron Perlman was a guest star in Mighty Max.
Yeah, he was.
Really?
Yeah.
He would have, back then, he would have played Norman in a live action version of this. Or they could just put the hair on Richard
With this wig on and his bandana. So Mighty Max is feeling less than mighty, surrounded by all these great heroes. He doesn't want to go, but they need him, and they need his hat to use as an exit portal to escape. And this is when Max tries to give up.
You need an exit token? Here. I won't take it.
You are the mighty one.
We are yours to lead.
Let's start walking. I'll show you the world. Anything's better than dying.
But what about Skullmaster?
Ha! If it's not one evil, it's another. He's been around for 10,000 years. He'll hold.
But this is his destiny. He cannot walk away from that.
Oh? I did.
Only you could have gathered these heroes in the first place, Mighty Max. You were born to lead them. The fate of the world depends on you.
Forget the world. What about you?
I think I'd rather be in Fresno. Well, I have to.
So his conscience is a chicken man and a monkey man, telling him right and wrong.
Apologies to our listeners who might be in Fresno, but I'd rather be in Skull Mountain than Fresno.
Ooh, we lost our huge Fresno listenership.
I like Mighty Max has a cute one-liner, but then goes like, I have to. He has to do it.
I mean, it was a little cheesy, but it's also a good scene because it lays out the stakes and it's a point of drama where the main character does actually have a chance to turn his back on it, and that is the dramatic theme of the show, I suppose. It's like embrace your destiny or try and run from it.
Well, in Joseph Campbell's hero's journey and a hero of 1,000 faces, this is about the rejecting of destiny thing, like the rejection of purpose or whatever. I forget. That whole thing's dumb, but no, it's not dumb, but it's overdone.
Screw you, Joseph Campbell.
It's the Jungian narrative we all have in our heads.
Yeah, it's the reason I did that dumb voice for it is because I hate people bringing up it's like the hero's journey, rejection of purpose on the arc of the.
Well, it's so well known at this point that it's a cliche.
It's an interesting formula, but it's like a horoscope, and that you can make anything fit into it if you want to.
Yeah,
and I guess this is a point where Max is going into the underworld and facing death.
I like the shot of him putting out the thing like, here, just take the hat. I don't want this. You can take it. You can take it. All of them deny taking it. Even Hanuman denies it because he's like, no, I gave up responsibility. I don't want yours too. And he's
Norman's grunt.
Oh yes, he's
very anime grunt.
He thinks very poorly of Max for even offering his hat. Yeah, but Hanuman is I really like him. He's like, there's always evil guys. There'll be somebody else. Who cares? Destiny is stupid. I gave up mine. Who cares? Let's have fun.
I'm Team Hanuman, honestly.
Yeah, he thinks just like Chanticleer in Rockadoodle. He thinks that the sun.
Oh man, now there's a poll.
He thinks that the sun rises because of him, but that's not the case. Actually, at the end of that movie, it is the case that it rises.
Damn you, Don Bluth. So yeah, they transport to Skull Mountain. The Crystal of Souls is not there, and they're immediately ambushed by monsters. And Max immediately says, "I'm not the right guy for this. Like I already screwed up."
It's also a pre-memed. It's a trap. They say.
Oh yeah, I
they
wonder.
are.
They knew what they were doing, right? They had to.
I mean, it was 13 years earlier that Jedi happened, but it wasn't. I don't feel like it was
They
a
weren't
meme until
riffing.
like 14 years
They
ago.
weren't
or
riffing
something.
on Return of the Jedi.
People were making like, I've got a bad feeling about this jokes before it was a meme.
That's
you know?
true.
They're like, oh, I
Yeah.
can sneak this line of dialogue
but
into
not
here.
it's a trap jokes.
I mean, every American writer of genre like this, I'm certain, watched every Star Wars movie 800 times.
I mean, there are a million times I've watched an animated show where they suddenly yell out, "It's a trap!"
I think Ken Pontac might be listening to this right now because we're the only Mighty Max podcast.
Tell us, Ken
tell us, Ken.
Pontac.
We love your work. So all the warriors. So the rest of this episode, we're at the halfway point. It's just them fighting all these monsters.
a lot of monster fights. The
Yeah.
monsters all look so cool. I mean, they're just Film Roman repurposing the designs that were already made for the
Yeah.
toys. It looks
It's
like.
a lava monster.
Like the giant dry bones turtle.
That was my favorite
Yeah.
too. Yeah, the dry bones on him, man, and also I love that like Norman just fucking kills that one two-headed monster. He's like, I prefer no heads, and just kills.
I think with the dialogue, they wanted to show heads being cut off of a monster, and they maybe thought they could, but it's like, no, you just see him like the heads are presumably cut off, but the body topples into the lava stream below.
I think you can do whatever you want to a robot in a kid show then, but living monsters, they
Or
still
like-
wouldn't let you be too bad.
I think in Mighty Max in the first episode, aren't there rock monsters they chop the arms and
Oh,
heads
they
off
get
of?
chopped up, yeah,
So rock
yeah.
monsters are good too. They're kind of like earth robots.
I was going to say that I actually like that Norman uses his sword because that was the point of frustration for me constantly.
Oh, God,
That
yeah.
Leonardo had those badass katanas. He would never use them.
Yep. Same with He-Man had such a cool sword. Like that's why it was awesome to see a lightsaber used for real. That's how I knew Star Wars was cooler than He-Man as a kid. Like, oh, this lightsaber actually cuts things and kills people.
Yeah.
So yeah, Norman is teamed up with Mujaji. They defeat that dragon thing, but Mujaji says she hears the earth screaming, and a geyser of stuff shoots out of the ground and forms a bunch of monsters. You'll see this happen a bunch in this episode. They think they've won, but then more monsters spawn.
They are incredibly outmatched. The odds are really against them for this kid show. Also, though, they give the friggin' girl the intuition, like a woman's intuition.
I got that. I don't think Max said that at least.
Well, it's
so.
like spiritual. It's a spiritual thing.
Yeah, yeah.
She feels the earth crying. I mean,
But at this point, like the formula is now they each have to teach Max something that he can use in the showdown. So she says that I used my intuition to open my senses, and Norman says never stop fighting. Norman's just sort of like Beowulf style, just like be like a marauder, go in fighting.
Yeah, just never give up, never surrender.
And now we meet up with Hanuman and Yona Yain.
I hate this fighting business. I stick my neck out for no one anymore.
Not the most heroic philosophy, my airy friend, but it does have its merits as far as survival is concerned.
Staying alive is all that's important to me. Since my karma is somewhat shy and spotless, I'll probably be reincarnated as a tapeworm. Whoop! Out of the way! Heads up! Coming through! Hero on the loose! Nice shooting, bud. So that's legendary skill, huh? Oh, man, thanks.
It is nothing, mighty one. Skill is merely focus. When focus is achieved, you need only release it.
Use your wits, kid. Stay on the high ground. After you.
So he learns focus from Yona Yain, and he learns wits from Hanuman. But Hanuman seems to just be pushing corpses into the river of lava.
Yeah.
That's his only job, like corpse removal.
I guess he's clearing out space, you know,
Yeah.
that's helpful. But knowing what is going to happen to him, it's great they give him all these lines of like, I just want to live. I don't care. It's all about survival for me. I wouldn't sacrifice myself for anybody. Like, they're really setting up what his
they're setting up
later
Tony Stark's
sacrifice.
entire arc from the Avengers.
Whoa, spoilers.
I'll take your word for
Avengers.
it.
The Yo Yain, I like that he compliments him too. He's like, not the most heroic thing, but survival does matter. Like he's just above it all. He's not judging him like, man, you're a coward. F you, buddy. Like I think that comes
He's
from
there.
his age.
He's
Yeah.
there for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
He's doing stuff.
And just like with Norman and Mujaji, this is when lava monsters spawn out of the ground, and Hanuman sends Max away, and Yona Yain only has one arrow left, which we'll see later be put to use in the finale.
Yeah. Though I disagree with him on the focus thing because I think him being good at his skill at shooting an arrow comes from a ton of practice and training, not just discovering focus.
And the skill of aiming.
Yes, yeah.
So that we catch up with Beowulf, and Virgil wants Max to watch Beowulf fight, and we get some comedy out of Beowulf singing poorly while he bashes monsters.
He's got a tin ear.
Yeah.
I like seeing Beowulf do all this stuff while singing silly songs.
He's basically a Klingon.
Oh yeah, he is.
Yeah.
The happy, nice Klingon.
Yeah, singing Klingon opera like Worf.
Oh yeah.
That's the whole thing. I mean, Worf's basically a Viking warrior.
He's one of those sword things, I guess. What are those called? The Klingon sword thingies?
A batleth.
Oh man, I was afraid Cat wouldn't know. Max watches Beowulf fight. Max feels the crystals nearby. Virgil says it's up there. And that's where Skullmaster is. This is when the final showdown happens until season 2.
Yeah, and Virgil's telling him everything. It's just like, I read it on the scrolls. You got to do this. He's like, but we came all this way with these people. Can't they do it? They're better than
Look at her. She's got a spear.
Yeah. They're basically clearing the path for him.
He's a tiny child with no muscles. Like, he can't. Seemingly, he is meaningless to a giant man with a sword like Skullmaster.
Well, he's the kind of protagonist I like. Kind of a Harry Potter type figure. Where, he has to use. He's not very powerful, but he has to use his resourcefulness to be able to survive.
And I have a clip. Max is afraid once again.
Skullmaster? By myself? Well, why did we recruit all of these heroes if I gotta face Skullmaster by myself?
You are not alone, Mighty One. The heroes have allowed you to come this far. They have taught you many things. It is your destiny to face Skullmaster and shatter the crystal.
So you keep telling me.
The fate of 1,000,000 doomed souls, of the very world, rests upon your shoulders, Mighty One.
Great. So it's a no-pressure kind of thing. Is that what you're telling me? See you, Virg.
Now be foolish into the jaws of death. I'll carry you there.
Got to it, Mighty One. Remember, a powerful spirit will overcome any obstacle. Stay there, fella. Let me show you a little trick I once taught a guy named Grendel.
Some henchman attacks Max on his way up the mountain. It's one of the, I think it's Skullmaster's second in command. This little goober.
I think so.
His name's
Warmonger. Okay.
He's basically the Starscream of the show.
Okay.
He's always trying to stab Skullmaster in the back. In fact, he gets an entire episode where seemingly he is able to destroy Skullmaster and take over, but of course Skullmaster has plans.
And Beowulf tells him a noble spirit and makes it the smallest Max.
The delivery is exactly the same.
Yeah. We were all knowingly laughing about that.
That line comes up in multiple episodes, right? A powerful spirit can overcome any obstacle.
I mean, probably.
I feel like I watched for the first time the final episode, and I think Max says that before he jumps on Skullmaster in their final thing. I also like that in Beowulf's threat, he's saying he's going to rip off the arms of the guy because that's the trick he showed Grendel, which
some nice implied violence.
And I like the very yakko reply of so no pressure kind of thing, huh? That was pretty funny. I said earlier I'd like it if it was an actual kid in the part, but I do like Paulson's delivery of well, why do I have to do it? It has a real whiny Luke Skywalker vibe to it.
He's a real wisecracker, but you buy the emotional moments of the show when he's afraid.
Why can't I go in there, Yoda? Come on.
It's like a kid from the Bronx or something.
Yeah, actually he's from San Francisco. That's where his home is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is not a San Francisco accent.
He lives in a freaking mansion in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the 90s?
I hate this kid. I don't
We
like
should hate.
him.
I mean, it was the 90s, so
Sure.
things were slightly different. It was still expensive, but not like it is now.
He's more like Danny Tanner, and then I guess.
They were neighbors. So Mighty Max goes to the Skullmaster's cavern. It's a really cool, creepy scene where he sees images of Skullmaster in the darkness. He sees his giant sword that Skullmaster wants to use to murder Mighty Max with.
Tim Curry's just describing all the ways he wants to decapitate him. He's like, I will murder you, child.
It's a
You're
real
dead.
creepy scene, yeah. So Max remembers the words of his friends.
Forward. Back. There's only one thing you can do.
He's right.
Remember, a powerful spirit will overcome any obstacle.
You must open your senses and anticipate the movements of the world.
When focus is achieved, you need only release it. Stay on the high ground. Let the other guy do the work for you.
Iron helps us play.
They were
Dental plan.
They were the floating heads even.
Joe.
At first, I thought Hanuman's suggestion was useless because he does not take the high ground in this fight.
It's a very Obi-Wan Kenobi suggestion. But it's useless, Mighty Max. I've got the high ground.
But the second part he actually does do.
Yeah.
He does let the other guy do the work for him of destroying the diamond or the gem. He does let Skullmaster do all the work.
It's true. And this next scene is all visual. So Max runs at the jewel in slow motion, basically, and dives at it while Skullmaster raises his sword to kill him. And when Skullmaster brings the sword down, the jewel is in the way and it shatters. It's kind of like a lame win for Max. It's like not super clever. I wish they had written something a little more clever than this, but he shatters the jewel and all the souls explode out of there. And I like how he says, die, when he brings the sword down. Like, again, characters screaming, die. Can you do that on even Cartoon Network now? Like, I'll kill you, you're going to die.
He's just, I mean, the situation is so creepy too of like Skullmaster, who is this very imposing figure. Instead of directly facing Max, he's like, I'm going to hide in the shadows. And when you make that move for the diamond, I'm going to chop you to pieces.
Oh, it's great. And it really makes Skullmaster seem all the more imposing because you can't see him very well. It really visualizes Max's terror because all you really see is his face kind of covered half in shadow and his eyes are kind of wide and you can hear him breathing heavily.
He's moving across the room.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
Yeah, I know, it really works. And his solution is, whatever, it's an easy win. But at the same time, it's meant to highlight that Max's whole thing is that he's quick and he's resourceful, and that's how he's going to ultimately beat Skullmaster. He's not going to beat him with his strength.
Yeah, the only negative I give it is that the slow motion's really hard to do in animation.
Yeah.
They handle it as well as they can on the budget, I think.
It's easy to write into a script for a cartoon, but much harder to pull off.
Yeah.
But we have Skullmaster's very pissed off, and we hear lots of fun death threats on this kid's cartoon.
Enjoy the few seconds of life which remain to you. I will teach you 1,000 subtle shades of pain, 100 ways to die, until I finally lay your lifeless body at my master's table.
Run, hero! Get out while you can! You can't beat Skullmaster, he'll kill you! Yeah, well, maybe I'll come back as a butterfly.
Prepare to find out, insect.
Run! It's my destiny. You gotta help him!
We must hurry to the exit portal so his sacrifice is not in vain.
But
It is the way of the cosmic balance, mighty one.
Yeah, I mean, both season finales are Max having to come to terms with people that have to die for him. Yeah. It's pretty fucked up. I mean, he does. I mean, this is a really downer of an ending. I mean, he escapes, but the actual ending itself is like a melancholy ending. And when, like in the season two-parter, Max is like kind of like destroyed by the deaths of his friends. Like he just met these people.
He has to see so much death throughout the series.
And it's a Pyrrhic victory again because Skullmaster does, in fact, manage to escape Skull Mountain in the next 2 episodes, and eventually he's able to recraft the soul jewel. So basically, Skullmaster just keeps winning no matter what.
It's how you stop a guy from being Skeletor, is if you have him keep winning like that. But the
new Skullmaster is Jeff Bezos. He looks just like him.
Well, not as muscly.
Yeah.
But the big move of Hanuman surprising you, saving the day with a Han Solo arrival at the last second. You expect him that he's not going to try, and then here he is sacrificing
Han Solo
himself.
doesn't get shot down immediately by Darth Vader.
They make it so clear of like he's dead, man. Like he's like Max so matter-of-factly saying you can't beat him, he'll kill you. Well,
and his like crushed helmet gets kicked towards them.
Well, it's a very anime delivery, by the way, when he's like, it is my destiny.
That's true, yeah. But I also love how Tim Curry is so like Skullmaster is so present in the moment. He's like, enjoy your last few seconds of life before I do all this to you.
I'm going to teach you 1,000 subtle shades of pain. I mean, don't make promises you can't keep, Skullmaster.
And then
when torture that boy.
When Hanuman says he wants to be reborn as a butterfly, he has Skullmaster has a great comeback there too. Like, I guess you'll find out now, insect. I will like.
Jeez.
Yeah, and he does. Spoilers. He does come
It's
back.
like, I'm going to
as a
lay your
butterfly.
lifeless body at my master's table.
Yeah, it
Oh
is
my God.
really fucked up. That's why I think that's why I liked it. Like, wow, they're getting
I mean,
away
that's
with
what
this.
attracted me to it because it made no bones about what it was, and it was very different from the other fare that was on Saturday morning cartoon.
On other kid shows, they would have said, "No, we can all save him," and they all go back and save him. But in this show, it's the much more realistic thing of he bought us precious time. We gotta run now.
And the villain would say, like, I'll get you. But instead, Skullmaster says, I wrote the quote down. It's like, I'll kill all of you. That's not the quote. But the second part is, he basically says, I'll kill all of you. And then the quote I wrote down is, and the last to die will watch the first 5 go before him. So he's like, even if I kill you last, you will still be forced to watch me kill all of your friends. So it's like,
He's like a horror movie villain.
Even dying last is not like a relief.
And when he chucks the helmet at them, the crushed helmet, to let him know he definitely was killed off
dead.
screen, he says, "Alas, poor Hanuman."
Yeah. So if you watch the first episode, you'll know the cosmic portal, this exit portal, is right above this lava waterfall. Before they had machinery to get them there, but now they don't. So now here's a clip of how they escape.
Yunayain, tie the rope to your last arrow. What you say, Mighty One. I see your plan.
As do I. Muchachi! I cannot do this. Kill them. Kill them all.
Come on, everybody, time to hook out of here. We must hold Skullmaster at bay, or no one will escape.
It is destiny, young Capper. It is fate for us to make this stand.
No! We can't just leave you guys!
We'll manage somehow. If not, I'll see you in Valhalla. Muchachi!
Go, brave one. Be good.
Damn.
Yeah, so basically they fire an arrow with a rope attached to it to this dragon thingy, and that's how they escape. That's how they're able to swing into the portal. It's over the lava.
But only the 3 main characters, because the rest are held back, so they don't stop them from getting away.
Yeah, and Virgil and Norman know when they have to die, and it's not then.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
At least Virgil knows. I think Norman does too in that episode.
It's a really impressive feat that in the space of about 20 minutes, they A, make me care about these characters, and B, like really infuse them with quite a bit of personality. And that's good voice acting. And I mean, the dialogue itself is cheesy, but at the same time, it's delivered with like a real purpose. That like they really kind of lean into the lines, and therefore you get a real strong sense of their personality. So when they die, you're like, oh man, that's real sad.
I love when Curry also says, like, kill them. Kill them.
Yeah,
all.
it's great.
Yeah. Hey, I was legit surprised in this viewing of it. This was my first viewing this episode that, like, I had heard characters die in it. So when Hanuman got killed, I was like, boy, they killed off Hanuman. That's crazy. Well, everyone else definitely getting away because it's a kid show. That all 4 of the new characters introduced in this episode die. Like, not as explicitly as Hanuman, but they are definitely dead and never return in the show.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they're all dead. They're all dead.
Yeah.
And Max is really broken up by this. They're sped out in the Serengeti. Max is kind of, just really hurt by all the death and murder he saw with these new friends. And all Virgil can say is, like, it is destiny, Mighty One. Like, these things have to happen. And then the last shot is like a very somber moment to end a season and potentially a series on. Max has basically created like a little shrine to all of these dead people in his backyard with like a little item from each of them. And then the episode's over. It's like when I watched the Mr. Freeze episode of Batman, I walked away going like, oh my God. What?
Yeah.
They did this? I'm sad now.
Well, and
I have
also-
to go to school and I'm sad.
Also, I like how, like, stoically Norman just buries his, like, it is fate or whatever.
Yeah,
Like, he just lets it
His
go.
old girlfriend died.
So when they invade Skull Mountain, it's like, it's serious. Skullmaster is sending his entire armies. The odds are overwhelming. People die. They barely escape with their lives. I feel like in a lot of other adventure cartoons, there would be the Doc, oh, look at all the funny ways that we're taking out these enemies. And there's kind of a hilariously ineffectual main villain. They accomplish their objectives. And you're just like, oh, what a fun romp. And here you're just like, oh, we got out by the skin of our teeth. Holy moly. Any confrontation with Skullmaster is going to be, people are going to die, and that's just how it's going to be.
Even like Warmonger, that kind of goofier villain, he's still very threatening. Like all of the threats are very threatening in this finale. Nothing is like silly to take away the stakes. The stakes are very big.
I feel like a lot of cartoons would have ended with Skullmaster going, I'll get you next time, Mighty Max.
Yeah.
Well, Mighty Max is a jokester character in a rather serious world.
That's very true, yeah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting tone to go for, that he's like, he has the comedic sensibilities of Yakko Warner, but he is a real person who is like, I don't want to die. Like he doesn't have a funny line sometimes. Or he also knows that like when people die for his sake, he feels extreme guilt and sadness about it.
He has real relationships too. Like we don't get to see his mom, but he has a single mom and they seem to be very close.
Oh yeah, he's got a single mom who's like working a lot, as single moms did in the 90s. And you're right about that last remark, Kat, and that we don't see, like, Skullmaster is defeated, but you don't get the fish shaking scene at the end. And instead, like, while Max has escaped, Skullmaster is just killing all of his friends off screen brutally, and you don't see that. Yeah,
he succeeded in that way, but I didn't understand in first viewing. Only on the second viewing, like, oh, the butterfly's Hanuman. That's
right.
I didn't get that.
That's a great little final visual flourish.
Yeah, they say they just have him say, "I'd come back as a butterfly," and they trust the audience of kids
to remember
know what reincarnation even is, and as a concept, which and then two, to see a butterfly and know that that's supposed to be Hanuman back in his new life, to show that he did fix his karma as well,
and that the Christian religion is false.
Yes, yeah.
So that all the kids should know that watching this at home.
I would hope it undermined all of it.
Yes,
yeah, for sure. Man, if there's one episode that they shouldn't have the frickin' moral of the story scene, it's this one. Like, because you're left with such like a somber, powerful, emotional moment where you see Max, who's normally has all these words he can say, is now just so distraught and he's somber and silent. Then you cut to, boy, we went to a lot of fun places today.
Was there one on this episode?
There was.
Yeah,
I didn't see it. What was it all about?
He talks about going to Denmark. He talks about the different legends, and he's like, oh, I met these 4 characters.
And basically the moral was, aren't all our different cultures cool? We can all come together on this stuff.
Yeah, very 90s message.
I guess it was mandated, but they could have had a bet like, hey, kids, a lot of people die today. Do you know about death? Your parents will die someday, and you'll watch it happen in front of you. Anyways, see you next season.
In the season finale, they just have a voicemail message where he's giving the moral of the story.
Oh, in the very last episode?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like that. It was a nice touch.
That was a better way to deal with it. In this case, maybe they learned their lesson from this episode of like, we can't show Max in his study again. Like, if the version you watched, Bob, cut that out, they made the right move, because you shouldn't. Why even have that scene? But yes, on the YouTube version I watched, that he still has a moral of the story.
I might have just stopped it after that last scene. Like, that's enough. Too sad. But that was our treatment of Mighty Max. Thank you, Kat, for the recommendation. This was a big show for me in 1994. I was 12. I was ready for death and adventure all in one package. And again, to all of our listeners out there, if you want to watch Mighty Max, it's all on YouTube. No one will sell it to you. That's the best version of it. There were I think the only home release was 7 VHS tapes with 2 episodes on them each. So that was basically it for Mighty Max. And I'm sure you can eBay the toys if you want, but I recommend, if you want to go back in time to watch a good prestige cartoon that's very well written and very mature and doesn't talk down to kids, it's very fun if you can get over the poor quality of the YouTube rips. And again, I apologize for the clips if they are of lower quality. It's the best we could find, but somebody out there find the original Mighty Max tapes and put them online. Somebody has to have access to them. I'm looking at you, Mark Zaslov.
Oh, thank you to whoever did that, because it would have been too bad if this show had been lost to history. And it already is to a great extent. People don't really remember Mighty Max at all, but at the same time, there have been many times where I've been like, have you ever heard of Mighty Max? And people are like, what? And I'm like, allow me to tell you about this extremely dark and frankly kind of messed up show with an actual arc that was kind of like an anime in the early 90s. And by the time I'm done talking, they're like, you said words at me. Okay. So it's nice to be able to sit here on this wonderful podcast and be able to really be able to tell people that, yeah, in fact, Mighty Max, a show that I grew up watching, was great. And when I sat down to watch the episode in question, I was kind of like a little nervous, and I was going, oh man, I hope this holds up. And by the time it was over, I was like, Wow, hold up.
I was really surprised, and like
Yeah.
I haven't even looked at this show since 1994. But even thinking about it, like I knew about certain moments, certain characters, what happened to them, and like the very interesting elements of the show that other shows weren't doing and wouldn't be doing for like another decade. So Mighty Max owns. Henry.
Yeah, I was happy to watch this. It makes me, wish I'd have seen it as a kid. It
You
was
missed out, Henry.
Yeah,
As continuity nerd Henry.
I know. I would have loved this show. I blame my local affiliate station not airing this properly in my neighborhood. But yeah, this was great to watch. I watched a few episodes of it, and including the finale, and just it has all my favorite voice actors in it. It was a great time.
So, Kat, please let us know where we can find you, about US Gamer, of course. Anything else you're working on? Podcasts? You're doing a lot of stuff. Let us know.
Hi, I'm Kat Bailey. I'm starting a rivalry with Chapo Trap House. I am going to have more episodes than they ever will.
Whoa.
Take that.
You have to start. Well, they started, 5 years ago with 2 a week, so you got to keep going.
Oh, no, I'm talking about appearances on this show.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Not number of episodes. That
They
you
were calling me
produce.
out. They were going to get me.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh, man.
Yeah.
I think Virgil and Matt Christman put a fatwa on you.
But I'm the editor-in-chief of a little site called US Gamer. We cover video games, and I think that our coverage is real good, so you should go and read it. We've been, as the recording of this episode, it's going to date it a bit, but we have a lot of Fire Emblem Three Houses stuff.
I've been loving it. Loving that.
It's a great game, isn't it?
Well, and your content was so great too. But yes,
thank you.
I have played 35 hours of it in 4 or 5 days. Fire Emblem is so addicting, and you did a great review of it.
Thank you very much. I also host an RPG podcast called Axe of the Blood God, and a friend of the What a Cartoon, Callie Plaguey, was on our most recent episode to do a review roundtable with lots of spoilers about Fire Emblem Three Houses. So once you finish it, Henry, you should go check it out.
Everybody who has come on this podcast today in this recording room has talked about this damn game, and I have to fucking buy it.
Buy it, Bob. It's so good.
I'm gonna have to
Fire
buy
Emblem's
it.
good now.
I mean it. Yeah,
It was never bad, in my opinion.
but now it's extra horny. So thanks to all of our friends out there for listening. If you want to support our show and get every episode of this podcast and our sister podcast, Talking Simpsons, 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. If you sign up at the $5 level, very affordable, you'll get access to so many paywall podcasts, all of the $5 paywall podcasts we've made since we started this Patreon back in June of 2017. That includes all of our miniseries to date. Those are Talking Futurama, Talking Critic, Talking of the Hill, and you'll also have access to our new miniseries coming this fall that our patrons will decide upon. There's also dozens upon dozens of bonus podcasts, far too many to list here, but if you sign up today, you'll get access to all of them, and there is so much to go through if you're a new patron. But Henry, there's stuff going on at the $10 level for our big spenders. What's happening there? Extra long podcast, right?
My goodness, so long. Yes, the What a Cartoon format, if you enjoy it, which was twice as long and about a movie. We did that on our What a Cartoon movie podcast, where you do a different animated feature film once a month only for our $10 and up patrons. Our most recent one, Beavis and Butthead Do America, the MTV classic. We talked for over 200 minutes about this classic film, and you can hear all about it if you sign up at the $10 level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
I listened to your Secret of Nim episode. Real good.
Ooh, thank
And
you.
somehow Don Bluth came up in conversation at my house just recently, and I was dropping a lot of knowledge on them from your podcast, and I was feeling real smart.
Hope we were cited. I want citations. But as for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. Find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts, a classic gaming podcast, every Monday and occasionally on Friday. Go to retronauts.com or look for Retronauts in your podcast machine, and I think you'll like it. We will never talk about the Mighty Max game. I'm sorry. Just can't go there. Henry, what about
real
you?
bad.
It's really bad.
You can follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG whenever new podcasts are up on the Patreon or the free feed for What a Cartoon or our sister podcast, Talking Simpsons. You'll learn about them first from me at HENEREYG.
Thanks so much for listening, folks. We'll see you next week with Chihaya Furu, episodes 1 through 3, and we'll see you then.
Come on, Leroy, I want to bag me a rhinoceros.
I am Mujaji, she who must be obeyed. You are breaking statutes 37A and 451B, E, and F. If you fill out the forms in triplicate and file them with the hunting commission, there are other animals you can hunt, but that rhino is off limits. Just read these.
You love podcasts, the stories, the laughs, the unexpected turns. But when this episode ends, the silence starts. Not anymore. Audiobooks.com turns that silence into your next great adventure. With over 450,000 titles, from bestsellers to hidden gems, your love for listening just found its new best friend. And because you already know the joy of audio, we're giving you 3 free audiobooks to start your journey. Imagine your favorite podcast, now with unlimited episodes. That's audiobooks.com. Keep the story going. Sign up for your free trial at audiobooks.com/podcastfree today. Because for podcast lovers like you, the end of an episode is just the beginning. That's audiobooks.com/podcastfree.